Then number 2, please. Next slide. Now, the second method that I'm mentioning is the single source procurement. Now, this is a method of acquiring goods, works, and services from only one source. This method is otherwise referred to as direct procurement. This method should be used only under special conditions, such as emergency. This may be due to natural disaster when only one firm or individual is qualified. It is not competitive. Now, like I said, that competitiveness is a core principle of procurement. And when it is a good single source, there's no competition. Why should we still use it? Now, there are some situations, for example, if there's rainstorm and wind blows off the roof, and you want to advertise for 6 weeks to invite contractors, and another rain, this is August too, and all the books, everything is spoiled. So you don't have time to do that. You can just call somebody that you know, maybe due to past interactions, to fix it. So in such cases, you may not have the luxury, the time to be going around to ask for competition. So such a condition can apply. Then also, there are some items that they have monopoly. For example, if you want to buy Toyota car now, Toyota Nigeria is the only source in Nigeria, except you're importing from outside, which is a complex system. So there's some equipment that is only one person, only one source you can get it from. So in such a case, so that single source, it's a direct sourcing. So it's the in thing, because that's the only source that's available. Another situation that can favor this direct sourcing is what we call standardization. For example, like the example that I gave, we have done chairs before. Now we want to do chairs that will be exactly the same thing with what we have done. The reasonable thing is to call the person that did this first one to continue, otherwise we're not going to have the same thing. So that's what we call standardization. So in such a situation, single source procurement may become necessary. So next. So this request for quotations. Okay. Thank you for the advice. He's telling me how much. When did you start counting? Is it when the slide came or when I started talking? Okay, whichever way, that's what you have said. It's noted. Now, request for quotations. Now, this method is used for small value procurement of readily available off-the-shelf goods, small value construction works, or small value services. The method can be used for a project whose value does not exceed 250,000. This is just a suggestion, really. So this figure is not sacrosanct. It's an opinion. And just to illustrate that the value is not big. So that's why, for now, the federal government is putting the value at 1 million naira. That anything below 1 million naira, you don't have to be advertised. Even the cost of advertisement will have eroded whatever gain. So this method does not require preparation of tender documents, quotations, and obtain and all that. You want to buy maybe one computer system. You don't have to now advertise and all that. So there's for small items. Of course, a financial team, they can decide on what they consider appropriate for the institution. But what we're talking about, request for quotation, you just get quotation maybe from 2 or 3. Okay, if you want to do this, you don't need all the ceremonies, tender documents. No, it's not necessary. And just pick one of them and you buy it. So that is what we call request for quotation. It's a method of procurement which is internationally acceptable. Next. Two-stage tendering. Now, in this method, technical and financial proposals are submitted separately. Often, the technical proposal is submitted before the financial bid. Usually, this method is used for large and or complex projects Only bidders found adequate technically allowed to proceed to submit financial bids. Of course, I now put the situation for, the federal government. Of course, we are private, but there are a lot of things. But we are a government of a sort, really. So there are a lot of things, because some of these principles are tested. So we can adopt them and use them, because these are tested principles when you are dealing with a light. Now, when we're talking of this two-stage tendering, now, it's usually for a complex project. Now, of course, when a project the volume is large, it becomes complex. Because when simple things become much, it becomes complex. But there are some projects that are even complex by nature. Let me give a few examples. Of course, the federal government's principle is that any project in excess of 300 million, it should be a two-stage tendering. Two-stage means the first stage is that they submit their proposals as to how technically qualified, so that you assess their technical competence. A few years ago, I think that should be around 2014, one of the halls of residence in the University of Ibadan, some students were just in their room, and they were on the ground floor. Then the surface of the slab just peeled the concrete and landed on the floor. It was God that saved them. That landed on anybody, it could not have survived. Anyway, the fact that the building was collapsing, and it was a 4-story building, hall of residence, massive. That's Awolowo Hall, the University of Ibadan. So that, I want to be particular so that I can check the facts. Now, when that happened, we now discovered we had to evacuate the students. And when we assessed it, we discovered that it was a failure of the foundation. Now, fixing that, as an engineer, I know it's not everybody that can do it. It's not there are some contractors. We know, particularly in Nigeria, we have different contractors. So we have to be sure of the competence of whoever we do that we're going to give that project to. So what we did, we had to do a pre-qualification first, even though the money was not that much, so that we determine the competence of the contractor that we handle, because it's a bit sophisticated. It requires some expertise that may not be common. So to be able to underpin the foundation so that you can arrest the collapse and save and salvage the structure. So in a situation like that, you may have to do the two stages. That the first stage, you ask for technical qualification. No money, just those you just assess their technical competence. And when you are satisfied, only those who pass the technical supervision, the qualification, now go to quote money. Because the issue is this: somebody who is not technically competent, his quotation is not reliable. It's not reliable. Somebody doesn't know what it takes. He just machine 20 naira. When he now got there, he discovered he doesn't even know what to do. What he would do for you is not what you're expecting. It's just like somebody that says, you say you want to buy a Mercedes-Benz car. He just give me 1 million naira, brand new. You know, if he's buying anything for you, it's not a Mercedes-Benz car. And you say, are you sure it's new? Okay, Jeremy. Okay, this is 1 million naira. You may just discover that you have just wasted your money. Because I'm very certain, it's either he does not know what he's talking about, or he wants to defraud you. So when somebody is not technically competent, whatever quotation he brings is not reliable. So you don't even look at it. So in two-stage tendering, so you do the technical qualification separately, which is otherwise called the pre-qualification. Then those who pass that, you now give them the tender for the financial bid. Next slide. Request for proposals. Now, this is similar to a two-stage procurement wherein bidders are requested to submit proposals for the most appropriate method and work plan for solving a stated problem. the methodology and plans are evaluated. The financial bids of those found most suitable are then evaluated. This method is usually used for uncommon project skills. Now, in this, of course, there are some things like the Vice Chancellor gave an example. He said that when they ask a question, it didn't know the answer. Sometimes you give the question, you don't know the answer. You are just hoping for the person to supply the answer. In the two, and they went through